For this recording, I want to have a look at how we can make a shape like this out of sheet metal, but I'm drawing it in Onshape to actually plan how it's going to look. As you can see, this is a sheet of card that's been folded over to create a shape that looks a bit like a bull or a dog that's been used. So if it was to be laid flat, it would look something like this, as in a net that's been drawn out and then folded along these folding lines here, okay, to create the shape. Now, you can do this in Onshape, but it is complicated to do. But let's see how this goes. So my story was that I started off by having a go at drawing the actual net itself. So I drew out a net flat like that, and I thought, okay, well, I can actually extrude that and then see if I can then get it to actually fold. So drew the shape out roughly and then extruded it to 1mm and then tried to actually put it into the sheet metal thing. But the problem is it doesn't know where the fold lines are. It doesn't see those to actually work with it. So what I realized was that what I needed to do was to actually draw the shape out in 3D first. So that becomes quite a complicated thing because you have to use lots of work planes to actually draw each of the parts. Did manage to do it, but it was quite a complicated shape. And if you look from above, you can see that it has a mirror line that runs through the middle. So basically I did half of the shape and then mirrored it to the other half so that each of the features came through that way. But some of my work planes are angled to give me the shape of various parts that I want to work with. And that's quite easy to actually do. The next thing was, how do I actually put that into the sheet metal tool? Because what it tended to do was to extrude each of these parts or thicken them, but not give me a fold line to work with. And then I realized that what I needed to do was to actually fill each of these areas to create surfaces. So instead of creating a part, I create a surface which can then work for it. Okay, so to do that, I've got all my shapes created here. So I'm going to use my fill tool to create each of the parts. So basically take the fill tool here, and then you select each of the edges of each of the shapes, like so. But you have to do it as a panel, so you have to be careful that you select the right lines as you go through, and they have to be done in the right order for it to work. Okay, so I'm being very careful about which lines I select, and then that line there. Now that then is treated as a surface that it creates using the edges of each of those panels there. What you can't do is do more than one surface because the fill is on one flat surface as it creates it. Okay, so that's quite nice. That gives me a nice sort of shape to work with. The problem that you get is that when you green tick this, it can, if it's an isolated shape, it can remove a panel, so you just have to be careful about how you go through that fill process. But what I'm going to do is just build up a list of all the fills as they go through there. Okay, so once I've done that, I should then end up with, I'll just suppress this for a moment, I should end up with all of my fills created like so. So they are all now filled flat shapes. Okay, now I can then go to my sheet metal tool, that part there, and I can ask it to convert which parts I want to use. So in this case, it's going to be the surface that I've created here. So I'm going to create that surface, and that now has brought that all in as one piece of material there. Okay, by using the flat surfaces to work with. I've also set my thickness to be 0.5 mil for this, and my bend radius to 1 mil. Okay, now I can then use my edge tool to select which edges I want to actually fold, and that should start to create the folds for each of the panels as if they were actually folded on a sheet metal folder. You can see those beginning to come through there. Okay, so then I can select this edge here, and this edge, and this edge. Okay, there. And then green tick that. Now, the proof of the pudding is that if the net has worked, then if I click on my sheet metal table flat view, it should give me the complete net drawn out, separated out with all the folds on it. If it hasn't worked, then you will see these as separate parts, and this is what I want. I want the whole thing sort of laid out like so. So then I've got my complete shape to work with. This is quite cool to actually use the sheet metal area to work with that. Okay, quite pleased with that. And it does look like the original, apart from a little bit at the tail. I think I missed off a little bit here, but you can see that it has actually produced the figure that I want, that could then be folded on the sheet metal or cut out of acrylic, laser cut out of acrylic, and then put through that way.